Welcome to the first talk of the HospEx Summit platforms. My name is Shawn, a long-term advocate for HospEx, a former nomadic ambassador to Couchsurfing, with my home community being Seattle, Washington, and currently I volunteer in communications with Trust Roots. Today, we are honored to have some long-term veterans of hospitality exchange of some of the most widely recognized networks in the world today. They have spent years of their life, mostly on a volunteer basis, to help build HospEx networks that allow everyone to have meaningful connections around the world. And it is my pleasure to introduce our esteemed panelists today. We have Jonny Sagege, president of Servas International, which is sort of regarded as the granddaddy of all HospEx networks, being founded in 1949. Jonny's background is in journalism, where he is the editor of the Insight Medicine news service. But in his experience and service with Servas, he joined in 1984. Then from 2006 to 2012, he was a member of Servas's Sweden's national board, then the national secretary with Sweden, and then he was elected president of Servas from 2012 to 2015. He served a second term from 2016 to 2018, and he has been currently reelected in his third term from 2019 to 2022. He's also a member of Be Welcome and Couchsurfing besides Servas. Welcome, Jonny. We have Kasper with us today, who was an early volunteer developer for Couchsurfing in 2006 and traveled the world in the Couchsurfing collectives in the early years, building the platform. He has also volunteered with Be Welcome over the years and is a co-founder to Trust Roots, which was founded in 2015. He also co-founded HitchWiki and is a big advocate of hitchhiking culture and has traveled all over Europe doing so. Welcome, Kasper. We also have Krystyna Corazon de Valle with us today. Viaje. Krystyna is currently a board member at Be Welcome, where she has been a member for over 8 years at. And in 2020, she asked herself what she could do for Be Welcome and began helping coordinate a translations group. And later at Be Welcome's General Assembly in 2020, she dared to put her candidacy up to the board of directors, where she was elected, and here she is. So welcome, Krystyna. We also have Maria Kozinska with us today, and she is a long-distance bike tourer and a human being lost in software engineer world, as she would say. She likes to explore and find sense of freedom in writing code. She's passionate about open source software for a more open society. She loves forests and mountains. She's been a years-long member and contributor to the community-built Warm Showers Android app. She currently volunteers with welcometomygarden.org and trustroots.org, and she usually prefers to stay in a tent with the Warm Showers host, she's met many great individuals through Warm Showers. She hopes that unique bicycle touring community can stay together, and she has traveled by bicycle or kayak over 30 countries in Europe, Asia, America, and Africa. And she currently lives in the woods near her home in Warsaw, Poland, and this is where she did her first hitchhiking trips 20 years ago. Welcome, Maria.
Hi.
We also have Aapali, is a Finnish-Australian software engineer and mathematician, currently doing a PhD at Columbia University in New York City. He's an avid traveler, having lived in half a dozen major cities and visited more countries than he can count. He has over a decade of experience designing and building scalable yet performant software systems and has taken several projects from idea to execution. He co-founded the Couchers.org project last year and leads the product team in charge of the architecture and development of the platform. Welcome, Aapali.
Hey, everyone.
So welcome to all our speakers. And to begin, we would love to have each speaker share about their platform that they have been most involved with, and what is some of the history of your platform, how does it operate today, what you can share with us today. I know that Jonny and Krystyna have also some presentation materials to share with us. But Jonny, I would love if we could just begin with you, being from the granddaddy of all the HospEx networks, Servas.
Thanks a lot, Shawn. That's great. I never heard that before. The granddaddies of the HospEx. So that's nice. And thanks a lot for that introduction, and thanks a lot for the invitation from the entire group. My name is Jonny Sågänger. I'm a Swedish citizen. I'm now in the countryside outside of Uppsala, which is north of Stockholm. I had planned to talk for 30 minutes, but there was a misunderstanding. So I'm not going to be able to show you the entire presentation. So I will do something different then. As Shawn told you all, Servas has its historical roots in the 1940s, at the end of the 1940s. And there was an organization called Peace Builders. And there was a guy from the US who went to something called Folk High School in Denmark. And he traveled around in Europe after the Second World War. His name is Bob Lutweiler. And he saw the sort of all the destroyed buildings and all the disasters after the war. And he felt, is there something I can do possibly to do my little thing so that this will not happen again? So he started working groups with groups that were studying social justice, peace issues. And when these people went to have their meetings, they stayed with each other. And another thing that happened was that people who couldn't afford to travel, for example, in Germany, they were put up in other countries so that they could travel even though they didn't have any money. So the roots of Servas is really peace work. And then over the years, the organization developed in a way that the founder, Bob Lutweiler, wasn't really happy about. He felt that the ideals of striving for a more peaceful world, social justice, and so on, they got somehow lost, and that the organization turned into an organization where people were mainly traveling around and staying with each other, didn't think so much about the sort of the roots of the organization. So and then, but it was always there, I think, and I always think that when you open your home to somebody that you don't know and you share about your interests, your culture, you discuss different things, that is sort of part of the peace movement, because you're forced, when you are you enter into somebody else's life like that, you get inspired and you have to rethink why do they do this, and you have to explain why you do certain things, and so on. So I think it increases tolerance for other cultures and other ethnic groups, religions, and so on. Well, Servas was a pioneer, and we had what could be called a first mover disadvantage. I don't know if you're aware of the term first mover advantage. It's like, you have a mobile phone company like Nokia or some other company that they are the first, they are the pioneers in a field making mobile phones, for example. And then they always sort of are in the lead in the development, and suddenly they stop looking at the world around them. And then somebody says that, hey, I've heard that Apple is starting they're going to start producing mobile phones. But the Nokia people was, no, 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 no. We're the champions. Apple don't know how to do that. And what happens is that Apple starts producing mobile phones. Nokia disappears from the mobile world. There is an analog here to Servas, I think, because during a period, Servas stopped looking at what was happening. We were in a bubble, and the big thing that had happened and that we were not part of was that the internet, which is quite a big thing, isn't it? World Wide Web and everything. And there was a huge resistance in Servas in making the move. So that we were pioneers, it became a baggage. It's like a conservative baggage that we were stuck in for a while. And this was actually because people were afraid of putting the host lists on the web because of fear of integrity breaches and so on. So they didn't see the possibilities that were there. So this is the reason I decided to run for president in 2012. That was my first term, because I felt that I can do something here to help Servas to get on the web, and also to create sort of a graphic design for Servas and some other things that I've been working on so far. So I would say that we now have a pretty good, we have a good website, and we have a system, membership system that is internet based. So we have a basis for growth actually. And we had planned to start a growth campaign at the beginning of 2020. And what happened? The pandemic. So we haven't done very much during that, on that growth campaign. But as for everybody else here, I'm sure that we are experiencing that we can create so many we were going in that direction to broaden our activities, to sort of go away from only the 2-night stays and physical meetings, to create meetings on the web everywhere actually. And the theme is always things that have to do with peace building. So I would say that that's where we're at today, that we are going back to the roots, becoming more, we're putting an emphasis on the values and principles that we have in our statutes, that all people are equal, the value all people are equal. And yeah, so that we're working for peace. Yeah, maybe, I think that's it. You were talking about paywalls. I would say maybe I should put that in, that we have a fee, and I would say that having a fee, there's always something that costs money. IT systems, for example, cost money, and you have to somehow finance an activity. And be welcome, have donations, I think, and there are other ways, but we choose to have a fee. And I think one big advantage of having a fee is that if you're paying for something, then you're not just hanging on to it. We don't want to have ghost hosts, for example. And that's one way of securing that. You have to pay a little bit, not very much, but something, so that you're not just hanging in there because you're lazy and not getting out of there. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing, Jonny. And we are going to have a paywalls talk here in the next talk.
Yep.
I will discuss some of the pros and cons as well, and would welcome your insight from Servas there. Well, that's wonderful. Thanks so much for sharing. And Krystyna, would you like to share about Be Welcome?
Yes, let me share my screen, although I think it's not strictly necessary, but hello, I'm Krysha. My adventure with HospEx website started with Hospitality Club back in 2007. Although I can say that I was being hosted by people from ISEC organization that I belonged to as student before, and I hosted people. I was always very grateful to my parents that they were so open to me bringing different people home. Then I joined Couchsurfing. I actually have one of those Couchsurfing babies. I met my husband through Couchsurfing, and right now, I joined Be Welcome in 2008, but the paywall in Couchsurfing was somehow the motor for me to start volunteering much more for Be Welcome, and that's how I am here. So I hope you can all see my screen. This is well, short presentation. Can I actually put it? Can you see? Yep. Basically, Be Welcome is a democratic, open source, and free of use hospitality exchange network. We want it to to remain like this. We rely on donations. A quick history of Be Welcome is that somewhere back in 2005, some volunteers of Hospitality Club started questioning the lack of transparency and democracy in the Hospitality Club website, and they founded Be Welcome in 2007. In 2009, the site was available in 29 different languages. Of course, it was done all by volunteers, so some languages are more, some languages are less, depending on the time and eagerness that someone can forsake to it. In 2013, just to show you some numbers and how it was growing, there were about 40,000 members, and Be Welcome was considered third biggest hospitality exchange site. Right now in 2021, I was just checking before the summit, there are about 150 active members. Many of those members actually joined last year after the paywall in Couchsurfing. The important thing is that in Be Welcome, members that did not log in for the 2 years, they are archived. Their profiles are archived. If they ever wish to come back, they can, but their profiles will not be shown in the host search. So the core values, I think the core values are pretty much similar for all the HospEx sites. It's promoting the idea of hospitality and cultural exchange, and I think we all agree with that. It's also encouraging volunteer work because Be Welcome relies on volunteers. Complete transparency, so the financial reports and also the plans for the next years, the budget, it can all be found on the Be Welcome website. Democracy, so there is, it will be on the next slide, there is a legal entity which is called Be Volunteer, an organization which is registered in France, that members of this, every member of Be Welcome can become, after a few months of volunteering, the member of Be Volunteer, and they can decide about what will be happening in Be Welcome. So the core features are the possibility to request a stay from another member or just messaging. So there are messages and there are stay requests. There are forums for discussion. They are moderated, but there's like not no removing members for talking about couchsurfing or anything, or any other organization. There is just the regular netiquette. There are groups for special interests. During COVID, we strongly support online virtual meetings. And quite an interesting feature is that you can translate your profile to several languages. If you know the language and you wish to receive guests from that particular language, you can have your profile translated to as many languages as you wish. In progress, currently under development, we have open trip feature. So internal structure is something that I have already mentioned. This is there is an organization called Be Volunteer, which is behind the Be Welcome website. There are two main organs, which is General Assembly and which is composed of all active members of Be Volunteer organization. And there is a board of directors. And most decisions are decided by the board of directors on behalf of the general assemblies, but big decisions need to be voted by the general assembly, so by all the members of Be Volunteer. Yeah, the importance of this legal status is basically that Be Welcome and the work of the volunteers cannot be sold. And Be Welcome cannot legally profit from the work of the individuals and from the donations. And as I said, every Be Welcome member can become a member of Be Volunteer after at least 3 months of volunteering. Here are a few teams of volunteers. So depending on your wishes and on your abilities, you can, or the member can join different teams and help to run Be Welcome. And as I mentioned, the transparency is very important to us. So the budgets and all the expenses can be found out on the website. There is supposedly a sustainable model, so we count that if we grow a lot, there will be more costs for the servers, but then we count that there will be more donations. We were actually quite lucky this year. We have received a very big donation from actually a former volunteer. And that is quite a huge, makes quite a huge difference in our finances, right? And that would be my presentation. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Krystyna.
Sure.
That was a wonderful presentation, very informative about Be Welcome. And if anyone has any questions about any of these networks, please use our Q&A feature and we can get to them at the end of everyone's presentation. Kasper, can you share a little bit to us about Trust Roots and some of your previous experience as well in other HospEx platforms?
Sure, yeah. My experience started actually quite a while ago when I found out about Hospitality Club. And I hosted some people and started traveling myself. I started hitchhiking around that same time, and I found it hard to find good places to hitchhike. So I also kind of started to HitchWiki in that process. With all the like, if you combine hitchhiking and couchsurfing, which I also immediately after Hospitality Club I started doing as well. It's ideal because I traveled a really long time with very little money, but not being a bum, like with having a good time and going all over the world. It's also how I bumped into couchsurfing, like the collective in Montreal in 2006. And I started working and I was super excited about the idea of taking thing which just got to 100,000 members, and making it bigger, making it grow, and my ideas were also to, coming from a perspective of working on Wikipedia and open source, sharing information. I wanted to gather like a whole bunch of coders, and I did. Like I got like a dozen programmers working on it in a pretty short period of time. And Couchsurfing had this amazing energy. Like we had like great places to stay, like to volunteer. It was just really awesome. But to me, there was an obstacle, which was 3 letters, the NDA, the non-disclosure agreement, which kept a lot of people working on Couchsurfing who came from the open source world, free software, who wanted to move this thing forward, but they wouldn't sign this document. This was like 2006, 2007. And I quit, like, and a lot of other people quit as well. When we saw there was no way to get this thing to move towards open source. It didn't even have to be open source for us, but it's about a certain like way of working that, like, if we would have had that possibility to move in that way, we wouldn't have quit. Like, but then fast forward 4 years later, and Couchsurfing gets in total like 20 million venture capital, which they spent, and I don't know if it's much to show for or not, but it's kind of like, at this point, like it's not like super. Yeah, it went into a direction which kind of stopped the progress of the platform itself. When I quit, I immediately started working on Be Welcome, and that was cool, but it felt like it was hard to my sense, like, democracy is good, but there was too much of it. So when I and some other people, we actually were in the board of directors of Be Welcome, and it was, yeah, a lot of discussions and not much actual change. And then at some point we started Trusted, not as like, not in a way to say like, we all still endorse Be Welcome. It's a great project, and it's great that it keeps growing. But Trusted has a different spirit. It comes more from like, it's a bit more anarchist, hitchhiking, like that direction. And we don't like, we have like an official organization in the UK, but it's a very lightweight structure. There's 3 members of the board of directors at this point. It's me, Mikael, and Natalia, and we don't really make decisions, much more democratic in a sense. It's also because we kind of didn't focus on it for a while, but the project keeps going. In terms of finances, we're just paying this out of our pocket. Like, it's the same with HWiki. It's very, there's not much cost. This is domain name and a server, and it's both for HWiki and Trusted. We just pay this ourselves because, yeah, like, maybe it could be nice to set up donations and try to gather the money, but we didn't care enough, like, for the amount of money that it is, that we went to do that, because there's a lot of overhead in terms of paperwork and bureaucracy, which we don't like. In terms of, yeah, like, what Trusted is now, it's like, there's a lot of hitchhikers on it, a lot of people who are not afraid to dumpster dive, Burning Man people. It's a bit more, we used to call it tribes, it's now called circles, because, yeah, people like changing words at times. There's a bit more of an underground vibe to it. I think it's good. Like, personally, I I mean, also because I'm not traveling now, I haven't done much, but this is fine. People who care, they do stuff, and if my involvement is needed, or if Mikael's involvement is needed, we will do whatever is needed to keep this thing going. In this sense, like, I'm excited that this summit is happening now, and it's also interesting to see how we can work together. Like, how can these networks share the knowledge and also share this happens in the background. If there are rotten apples in the network, we do share this information, and but it could be nice to find ways to share more. And yeah, like, and in terms of for Trustword, it's totally open to any of these things, but of course it always depends on the individual doing it. Individual, if you feel like you want to add a feature to Trustwords and you're a coder, just come and implement it. Like, there's no, I mean, if it's like, if it makes sense, like, not if it makes no sense, but like with most cases, you feel kind of what makes sense and what doesn't. That's how I started working on Couchsurfing myself. There were some bugs in the website, and I was annoyed by them, and I just went to Montreal and fixed them. And then there were some things I wanted to improve, and I just did that. And this is like what I want to encourage. I want to encourage people to yeah, to communicate and all right, I see some questions. Would I like to see Trustwords grow faster? I would like to see that, but in the current global situation we're in, it's not. I'm not sure if it makes a whole lot of sense. When countries are opening up more, and when also the arbitrary rules that are changing every week, almost, it seems, when that is like changing and people are able to travel more, also possibly with vaccines or not, like, I want to organize like a real life event, get people together, and work on this. And in terms of growth, I mean, quality over quantity for sure, but like without quantity, you don't get the quality in a sense. Like, if it's something is too small, people don't even know about it. So if it's bigger, bigger is probably better, like mostly. I think you can say mostly better. But yeah, it's not like it's essential. But I'd like to see in the long term, what I wanted with Couchsurfing was Couchsurfing having an API. So anybody who has an idea that's related to sharing, like sharing a bicycle, sharing meals, they could build their own app using the Trustwords profile. So like I want Trustwords to move towards like an API platform where people can implement ideas that are about sharing. So that's like a long-term vision I have about this. But yeah, and if anybody has question, I think I kind of talked about most of the. Okay, the biggest problem Trustwords is facing, I don't think we have any like. I don't think we have a big problem. So, I mean, I can't think of a big problem that Trustwords is facing. So, that was a question in the chat. How many on the platform? I didn't check in a while. I think it's like more than 40,000, but 55K. Okay, 55,000. Yeah. So I didn't check in a while, and I get requests at times, but it's not so often. So I'm not really, and I haven't been actively looking at those numbers. Yeah, that's yeah. If there's more questions, I'm happy to answer them. But otherwise, just great you're doing this, man.
Yeah, we can bring more questions and answers to you too, Kasper, after everyone gives a little talk about their platform. And what you mentioned about sharing resources and APIs, there is going to be a talk later today regarding creating a HospEx ecosystem. Would it make sense? That we'll be discussing what type of shared resources could be available to everybody. Thank you so much for sharing about trust roots and your experience, which is extensive. Maria, can we go to you and to talk about warm showers and welcome to my garden?
Yeah. Okay. So I will shortly tell my story. It started from warm showers. Then I jumped into welcome to my garden and trust roots, and then I will share my ideas for the future. So I started with warm showers. I'm long distance bike tourer, and I wanted to volunteer with warm showers for quite a long time, but I think first time I wrote in 2015 that I'm interested in that, but no one answered me. And then at some point I found an almost abandoned repo of Android app and started to help with that. And I have never been in contact with warm showers board. So I cannot speak of warm showers from perspective of the board. But right now, I think the mission of warm showers is to be like the platform for bicycle tourers and those who want to host them. And as part of that strategy, warm showers changed the way how it is working. It all started around 2015-16 when there was a change on board, and founder, a guy who put everything, Randy Fay, who put everything into internet, thought that it would be good to have distributed way of making decisions, not that it's only him who makes decisions. And he started a foundation, and he and there is a board since then. And this is when warm showers started to change. So right now at the end of the year and at the beginning of this year, warm showers announced that there will be a fee for the app, and claimed our community built up security threat that it's like if that app was from nowhere, although it was around since 2012, so longer than the board, and it has 50,000 installs on Google Play Store, and because of that, we developers, contributors behind the app, we wrote a message from developers. Our access to the server was cut off, so our app cannot operate anymore, and we display to everyone a message. You can read the message on a website, warmshowers.bike. And because of that, I moved to trust roots, and also welcome to my garden, which I think both are great platform. And we as former developers, we would like to keep community together, but we would also like to give people some other options than warm showers, because we believe that they don't hold anymore to the values that underlie hospitality exchange platforms. So we ask everyone to, so like maybe not ask, but we tell them that we would be happy to meet with them either in trust roots or we plan to add welcome to my garden to that message. And so now I will maybe shortly describe welcome to my garden, because trust roots was already introduced. and then tell what I hope to see next. So welcome to my garden, who started a year ago during first lockdown, and it was started by long distance bike tourers and hiker. And it has very like little promises of expectations, so it is not that much rooted in hospitality exchange as exchange of like cultural exchange. It's more a network of free camping spots for people who are slow travelers. And the important rule is that you cannot show by car on the place where you want to set up your tent. And after a year of operating, there are already 40,000 accounts, and there have been more than 20,000 slow travel requests made facilitated by the platform. I think it's very impressive for such short time. And it started in Belgium, but now it goes beyond Belgium, and we hope to see it grow. So after like all these experiences that I had, we in the message that we display from developers to the community from that Android app, we asked everyone to complete a survey where we asked about people preferences for and why they were using warm showers, and as part of that survey, someone wrote me that they would like to see the next generation of hospitality exchange platform to emerge. So, and that it would be built as a federated platform. And I really like that idea very much, and I hope that this is what will happen, and I will be happy to help it happen. I think this way, different groups of people could run their own platforms with their own rules, and that would prevent the situations similar to warm showers and couch surfing, where a board of directors end up with too much power, and I think this would prevent, from technical perspective, from happening again. So these are my hopes. And I would very much be happy to collaborate with other hospitality exchange platforms to build such a federation.
Thank you, Maria, for sharing. And Maria, you will also be on the HospEx ecosystem talk later today as well, to share about some of the potentially sharing of resources and what that might look like. Finally, we have Aapali, who had co-founded Couchers, which is a new site, and seems to have a lot of excitement growing there. So Aapali, would you like to share about Couchers?
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, I'm Aapali. I'm in New York, and so Couchers was born as a kind of in reaction to the paywall that happened on Couchsurfing. So what happened is, a good friend of mine, Itzy, who's now in Sydney, he unfortunately can't join because it's 3 a.m. or something. But so my good friend and I, Itzy, were both born in lockdown in Australia at the start of March, and then Couchsurfing put up their paywall. And, we'd been looking for something to do. We didn't really have anything, I was working and he was working, and but not really any hobbies or anything else going on. And so, Couchsurfing put up the paywall, and then Itzy was just kind of checking out what's going on, trying to see if there's any hangouts or something. And he came across the paywall, and he messaged me. And we were just shocked because we think that the fact that Couchsurfing put up a paywall is like it's a really bad strategic decision, but we also think that the way that was executed was really bad. And I think that a lot of other people in the community agree that it was just not done in a good way. It was not like, there may be justifications for doing it, but those were not made clear. It was just kind of put up and people were basically kicked out of something that's very important for a lot of us. So we saw that and we went, that's no good. We'd observed that there were problems on the platform itself before as well. And we thought, you know, we had some ideas already kind of brewing as to how, you know, how you could fix those. And so then this happened and we thought, well, that's the project we should work on. You know, and so basically we put out some feelers out on the internet, we put up some forms and a few people replied. And so we spent a lot of time basically talking to a lot of people who have been experienced in hospitality exchange and have been hosting a lot of people or surfing a lot, and just kind of trying to get a feel of what is the kind of consensus in the community. What were the problems? What should a kind of new alternative, you know, what would people like fixed in the platform? And so that's kind of how we got started. So we got started, we're almost 1 year old now. So I think we started on the 17th of May. So yeah, so Couchsurfing is mainly just it's a non-profit alternative. It's a big part of what we're doing is obviously we don't want a paywall. We're going to be free forever. We're non-profit. And so we're trying to build a lot of those features that were in Couchsurfing. And we basically thought what Couchsurfing had was good. The idea was great. The execution was, you know, there were technical problems. There were like problems with how the community was interfacing with Couchsurfing HQ. And so we want to basically replicate those features, but fix a few of those things. And then once we fixed a few of those things, our idea is that we want to go and kind of iterate on it and you know, work with the community together to figure out what new exciting features could we build and come up with, and what kind of tweaks could we do to existing features now that we have them kind of built in. So some of the big issues that we care about is safety, and especially safety for women and non-binary folks. So I think a lot of people know that Couchsurfing is very male-oriented, like 70% of users are male. And you know, we think that is just crap. That shouldn't be happening. Everybody, regardless of their gender identity or, you know, where they come from, should be able to participate in this. And so we have some ideas on how we're trying to fix it, you know, by building a robust review system where there's an anonymous part and a public part. So you can say nice things about somebody, but you can still flag that they made you feel uncomfortable. And we're trying to, you know, bring in some stuff from, you know, differential privacy to see if we could build in some, you know, build in a summary information of this person without, you know, giving away any individual references. So that there's no space for kind of retaliation or anything like that. So that's one of the big things that we want to fix. Something else is there was this kind of disconnect between the community and Couchsurfing HQ. And so what we're doing is we're trying to put an emphasis on local communities. We're trying to bring groups back, discussions, having events. And we're working on a variety of things to have this kind of distributed community system where, you know, where in addition to kind of just the surfing and hosting aspect, you also have, you know, everybody here knows about the community. You'd go somewhere and you'd be bored and, you know, you'd be visiting or you'd be at home and you wanted to meet some like-minded people and you'd go up on, you know, your favorite platform and try and see any events going on and meet other like-minded travelers and so on. So that's what we're trying to emphasize also, that in addition to their surfing and hosting. And then finally, obviously, we're trying to fix all the bugs and tech issues. For a long time, you know, notifications weren't working on Couchsurfing. That's pretty bad for a platform where you need to have kind of instant connections with people. So we're trying to fix all of those things. And so that's kind of some of the main issues that we've identified as kind of that we want to fix first up. And then once we've gotten kind of replicated those main features and fixed up these things, then we can go and iterate and work on these things. So I think, all right, so let me talk briefly about our roadmap. So we started a year ago, as I already said, and then we put out an alpha in August. And that alpha was built on some technology that we've later decided was no good. So we actually rewrote our front end. And so our technology is quite modular in that our backend APIs can be used by a variety of front ends. And so we launched our beta last month, about 30 days ago, actually. And so that's live. People can go and sign up on app.couches.org. It's still a little bit, in progress. There's still missing features. We're still working on some of these community features in particular. Are going to hopefully come in the next month or so. And then we're hoping to kind of wrap things up and fix bugs and release version 1 in about a month or 2. And then once we have released the web app and we have V1, our sights are set on launching mobile apps. So hopefully by the end of the year, we're going to have some kind of beta for Android and iOS, because if you're doing a hospitality exchange site in 2021, you need to have a mobile app. People are traveling, they're not carrying a laptop. Just having a web app isn't enough. You need to have your messages there. You need to have your information available so you don't have to copy it down or take screenshots or something like that. So that's kind of on the tech side. And so our team is kind of divided in two. So we acknowledge that there's this big technical side of we have to go and build a platform. We have to do all of that. But then the other side is we also have to grow a community. And so I'm the tech lead. I run the tech side of things. And then Itzy is responsible for the community side. So that's been a little bit quiet because, well, we haven't had our site up. But now that it's starting to be up, we're going to work a lot in trying to find people who would like to lead these communities, run events, organize things, and use couches for that and grow our platform. So we're going to be putting out a lot of content in the next coming months. We're going to be doing kind of community outreach, and that's going to be firing up very soon. I think something that a lot of people are talking about here is governance. So I thought I'd mention that briefly. So governance in couches, we are a nonprofit incorporated in Australia. And we also care a lot about kind of not having the same fate that couchsurfing.com had. So we have a kind of three-pronged approach. We have the legal side of we're a nonprofit, we can't be sold to a for-profit company, we can't, flip like that. And our trademarks are owned by a nonprofit and so on. We have the software side. Our source code is permissively licensed, so anybody can take it up and spin up an instance if they want. So there can be no kind of lock-in there. We don't require people to sign NDAs to contribute or anything like that. It's all in the open. And then our kind of third approach is that we want the community and the team that's building the community and building the software to be kind of integrated and part of, to be couch surfers. So we want to recruit people into our volunteering team who are couch surfers, and then we want to kind of have that kind of relationship where there's no kind of big divide between, what's going in a core team and what's going on in the users. And finally, I think I also want to quickly talk about the cost. So again, as people have said, running servers doesn't cost much. We're all volunteer-based, donations-based. So Itzy and I put some money together, so we're covered for a while. And really, I think, the big problem that keeps on coming up with these for-profit platforms is a kind of misalignment of incentives. If you're trying to build a platform like this, which is kind of this meeting place, online meeting place for surfers and hosts and whatever, and if you're trying to make that interaction non-transactional, there's not really a way in which you can extract money out of it. And so trying to push, profit into this model doesn't really work. We just don't think that's a good idea, that the incentives align there, So instead, we're running on donations, and if we get a lot of donations, we're hoping that we can use some of that money for the community building, because we don't think the servers are going to cost much, but being able to organize events and provide certain types of support to communities around the world, we think that could use some money. There's a lot of messages in the chat. Should I be reading this?
No, it's okay, Aapali, but there are two questions directed to you. One is, why didn't you join one of the other platforms represented here instead of creating something new? And the other one says, the current marketing strategy of Couchers seems to be focused in a deserved critique of couchsurfing. However, once couchsurfing fades into obscurity, do you already have a new one in mind for Couchers to stand up on its own?
Yeah, those are two very common questions. So in terms of our marketing strategy, yes, we are defined in comparison to couchsurfing. And it's kind of like Jonny said, couchsurfing has done this job of building an idea. And so we can piggyback off that, you know? A lot of people know what it is. A lot of people in the community know what's going on. So we don't have to define ourselves from scratch yet. But obviously once couchsurfing fades away, which we think it will eventually, then we will need to come up with a marketing strategy that doesn't piggyback of anything like that. And we have been working on that. We have been thinking about that. But for now, we're still in kind of our infancy and we're still trying to grow very quickly. And so we haven't done that yet. That's going to be coming in the coming months sometime. Not sure when exactly. Why did I not join the other platforms represented here, but created something new? Really, I think some of the platforms here are kind of oriented towards different kind of target audiences. So I think like couchsurfing is this kind of like general thing of like, you know, it's kind of, I think some of these platforms are maybe intended for people who are quite hardcore about the, you know, as who was saying it about trust truths, that trust truths has kind of like this anarchist vibe to it. It's very, very hitchhiking heavy, and you know, there's kind of like a different target audience, I think, and we're trying to just go, you know, we're not trying to create a different angle. We're not trying to do kind of a different thing. We just think couchsurfing.com was great, but it went for profit. And we think that putting up a paywall, well, first of all, it's spitting in the face of people who were just hosting people, right? It's just, if you're just hosting people, you shouldn't be paying for that. And it's also killing off kind of like the influx or, you know, the slow, you know, growth from new users, because it's a kind of, I think, getting into hospitality exchange is often like a kind of spontaneous exercise. You know, it's not something that you premeditate. It's kind of, you just kind of end up doing it because someone told you and you couldn't find another place to stay and you wanted to kind of, you know, meet locals or something. Anyway, so yeah, basically we started a new one because we felt that, you know, we have a slightly different angle here in comparison to what already existed. I hope that explains that.
I know that maybe in the early years of couchsurfing, it was through the Travelers Network, word of mouth, before social media even existed, that couchsurfing sort of grew and travelers learned about this network. To all the other speakers, do your networks have active marketing efforts, or do you just rely on word of mouth? Do you have a team that is trying to promote your site to get new members, or would you just prefer it to be more of a word of mouth and referrals to people joining your networks? Jonny, is there any initiative with Servas to promote it to the world, or do you just rely on word of mouth, say? You're muted, by the way.
Yes. Well, I was just about to write an answer here. One thing that we do is that we promote our platform, cooperation platform, Confluence, which makes it possible for people who want to be active in different peace promoting activities, and also to be active in the United Nations setting, dealing with sustainable questions like sustainable travels, gender equality, and issues like that.
Krystyna or Maria, do you have anything to say about how
you
would?
I can say for Welcome to My Garden, we are organizing a festival for slow travelers.
Festival.
Everyone is welcome to come, but I don't know more details. Sorry, so I won't share them. I think they are not set yet. Like, it's only that we are planning to do that.
Well, there is a communication team. I'm not sure if Anya is supposed to be on the stage. I think she could speak more about that. In general, yes, it's a word of mouth. We were thinking to contact or start cooperating maybe with some student associations. And actually, there are sometimes some articles in in some local newspapers. For example, recently the website was translated to Galician language, and the volunteer translator, actually approached me if he can tell about it in the local Galician newspaper. So I think this is actually quite a nice way of promoting.
Okay, we only have a couple more minutes left, but we do have a question for all the panelists. How do you guarantee that you will not go for profit? Krystyna, I know you wrote that you said that it's in your bylaws that you would not go for profit.
That's basically guaranteed by how Be Welcome is formed and the association that is standing behind it. Just legally cannot be for profit.
Okay. And what country is Be Welcome based in for the organization?
Yeah, the Be Volunteer organization is registered in France.
In France.
I tried to address that already in when I spoke, but basically we think that in addition to just having the legal clauses in the constitution of the nonprofit, which we do have, of not being able to sell to for profit and not being able to transfer assets and stuff like that. In addition to that, we also have those two other things that we want the source code to be permissively licensed, so that we don't have any kind of technical edge in terms of, not having not having rights in addition to what everybody else has to the source code. But then also in terms of like making sure that there's a kind of, that the people side is there, that the community is participating in the development and growth, and then the people in the growth and development are from the community, and that there's a kind of mixing going on. That's how we are trying to guarantee that.
Well, it seems like we've lost Kasper. I think he had a poor connection, but we are at time at the moment. We are going to have a discussion after the summit is over for those who may want to connect with some of these panelists and ask more questions. And any of the panelists, if you can make those discussions at your time, that would be great. I want to thank everybody here for participating and sharing about your networks, which are all fostering global connection, peace, and understanding around the world. And I would like to pass it off to Sarah, our MC, as we prepare for our next talk, which is Paywalls, a Blessing or a Curse.